There is a story about the ancient world everyone thinks they know, a grand repository of all human knowledge consumed in a single apocalyptic fire. For centuries, people have debated who struck the match. Was it Julius Caesar, a conquering army? And they mourn the countless plays, star charts, and mathematical theorems that turned to ash in an instant. That sudden, catastrophic inferno is largely a myth. The real story of the Library of Alexandria revolves around a highly calculated political tool rather than a spontaneous tragedy. To understand how this intellectual powerhouse actually fell, we first have to look at the ruthless ambition that built it. In the spring of 331 BCE, a 30-year-old Macedonian king stood on a narrow limestone ridge on the northwestern edge of the Nile Delta. Alexander ordered his engineers to clear a small fishing village and lay down a massive gridiron city. This design served a strict strategic purpose, connecting the deep, insular wealth of pharaonic Egypt to the rapidly expanding maritime trade routes of the Mediterranean. Despite the name, Alexander never lived to see Alexandria. He left for his eastern campaigns shortly after marking out the city limits with barley flour. The actual infrastructure took decades to materialize under the generals who succeeded him. What those successors inherited was a blank slate, a coastal outpost designed to merge the old world with the new, making it the perfect laboratory for an entirely different kind of empire. After Alexander died in Babylon, his empire splintered. His general Ptolemy I Soter seized control of Egypt. As an outsider with a fragile grip on power, Ptolemy desperately needed a way to legitimize his dynasty. He started with a brazen political stunt, ambushing Alexander's funeral procession, kidnapping the corpse, and eventually locking it in a tomb within his designated capital. But physical control proved insufficient. Advised by an exiled Athenian statesman named Demetrius of Phalerum, Ptolemy decided to corner the market on human thought. He envisioned a universal library that would hoard a copy of every scroll ever written. This chart shows the estimated scale of that ambition under his son, Ptolemy II. Ancient sources give wildly different counts of the total scrolls amassed at the library's peak. Estimates start around 40,000 and scale all the way up to a staggering 700,000 documents. Hoarding this volume of literature served as the ultimate display of absolute power. The Ptolemies created a template for urban absolutism, utilizing intellectual patronage to cement their authority over the Hellenistic world. The institution they built, known as the Mouseion, functioned as a cloistered, state-funded think tank. Modeled as a religious sanctuary dedicated to the Muses, scholars lived inside completely exempt from taxes and civic duties. To supply these scholars with material, the state instituted an aggressive information dragnet. They categorized a massive portion of their collection with a simple, telling label, "From the ships." By royal decree, armed guards boarded every ship that docked in Alexandria's harbor. They confiscated any papyrus scroll they found, sent it to the scriptorium to be meticulously copied, and returned the duplicates to the travelers, locking the originals in the royal collection. The obsession reached the point where Ptolemy III posted a deposit of 15 talents of precious metal to Athens simply to borrow the official masterworks of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides. He made premium copies, sent those back to Greece, kept the originals, and happily forfeited the ransom. This strategy literally starved rival cities of their own cultural heritage. By cornering the market on original texts, the Ptolemaic dynasty forced the greatest minds of the era to relocate to Alexandria if they wanted to conduct serious research. Inside the complex, over 100 resident scholars spent their days processing this raw textual data. They meticulously edited, standardized, and debated the foundational works of Greek literature, such as the poems of Homer. This diagram shows how head librarian Eratosthenes utilized this unparalleled geographical data. By comparing sun angles in Alexandria and Syene on the same day, he calculated the circumference of the Earth to within a few hundred miles of accuracy. Down the hall, Herophilus performed the first systematic dissections of the human body. Later, engineers like Hero of Alexandria designed automated temple doors and early steam-powered machines centuries before the Industrial Revolution.
By removing the financial burdens of daily life and providing a centralized, universally accessible data hub, the Ptolemies accidentally invented the modern concept of specialized, collaborative academic disciplines. The turning point for this intellectual haven occurred during a succession crisis in 48 BCE. Julius Caesar, besieged in the palace quarter, made a tactical decision to set fire to the Egyptian fleet in the harbor to prevent his own forces from being cut off. The historian Plutarch claimed that this specific fire spread from the docks and destroyed the Great Library. It remains an enduring image that has shaped our understanding of the loss of ancient knowledge. But the total destruction narrative falls apart under scrutiny. The library's massive overflow facility at the Serapeum Temple survived Caesar's fire completely intact. The institution suffered a slow, agonizing death by attrition, defunding, and successive military sieges over several centuries. The real tragedy of Alexandria is far more mundane than a sudden inferno. It is the slow rot of institutional neglect that sets in the moment political rulers decide that gathering knowledge is no longer valuable to their power. When the final scrolls eventually crumbled or burned, they left devastating gaps in our historical record. Nearly all astronomical observations made before Claudius Ptolemy are gone. Almost every mathematical text written prior to Euclid has vanished. The physical remnants of this intellectual capital met a similar fate, swallowed by earthquakes and 2 millennia of urban evolution, leaving the royal quarters submerged off the coast. Today, marine archaeologists are finally exploring those waters, recovering the sunken statues and stone blocks of the Ptolemaic dynasty from the harbor floor. But while we can drag marble monuments out of the Mediterranean, the centuries of scientific, literary, and mathematical progress recorded on fragile papyrus remain permanently out of reach. Yet, the structural ghost of Alexandria survived. The blueprint of the Mausonian, a state-funded space where scholars are paid to live, collaborate, and research free from daily labor, became the direct ancestor of the modern university system. And that original audacious vision of centralizing the world's information finds an echo today in the city's modern tribute, the massive Bibliotheca Alexandria, built near the site of the ancient royal quarter. The physical scrolls of the ancient world are gone, but the radical idea that drove their collection, that all human knowledge should be systematically gathered, preserved, and studied in one place, still runs the modern world.